I mean, I've gone to a few marches and stuff. I vote regularly, and I also, like, one of the things that I'm trying to do with my theater is approach how theaters are staged a little bit differently. Because like most theaters, you know, even if they're outdoor, like their front of house where like you check in and like, this is my ticket, or you know, whatever, or get your concessions, is basically just that. Getting your concessions, checking in with the ushers to like find your seat if you have it, you know, buying your ticket if there's a ticket for the show. What I am trying to do with the shows, like I've got a couple grants that are out in the ether, is turn that front of house more into a community resource hub where, like, you know, okay, tonight we have, you know, Y'all for All is at the front. So, you know, folks that are trans can connect with some resources in the area. There's, you know, tonight we have League of Women Voters because our show is, you know, we're performing just before elections are coming up. And so, like, here's the information about the local, you know, representatives. So there's some of those like very practical things that I'm trying to work into like all of my grant applications and stuff. But there's also like the thing that's very sneaky about theater is, and I've seen this work from the very first show I did. We were doing Othello in Marion, Indiana, which, if you know nothing about Othello or nothing about Marion, Indiana, Othello is often called Shakespeare's race play. The title character is a black man, and the antagonist is a white man. And so there's a lot about internalized racism that echoes from the Elizabethan era into today. And they were specifically, you know, they did some talkbacks with local civil rights groups to help the audience process and connect what they saw in the show to what they see in their daily lives. And there's more going on in the play than just, you know, there's also some domestic violence that they had come in and talk about that. But the thing about the area that we were performing in was the place where the poem that inspired Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit came from. The lynching that inspired that happened in the town where we were performing.
Yep.
I didn't know that at the time. I do now, and was like, oh, that's why the theater was so careful and so intentional about having that support system in place after the show. But the thing that theater in particular, and arts as a whole, but that in-person connection that theater just has baked in, is it humanizes the people across the aisle. And it's very sneaky because you may not consciously clock it, but especially if you go, that's part of why I write a lot of fantasy and stuff, because it's a Trojan horse of a sorts. I'm not going in with, it sounds very manipulative, but you know, I'm going, you know, we've got sword fights and magic and dragons and D&D and da-da-da-da-da-da. And, oh, by the way, you've just spent the last 2 hours interacting with queer people as real humans.
Yeah. And I don't remember if it was Bonhoeffer or Niebuhr, one of the two theologians, who said, in an oppressive system, when the oppressed continue to exist without being silenced, it is an act of open rebellion.
Yep.
In an oppressive system, when the oppressed continue to speak up, refuse to be silent, it is an act of open resistance.
Mm-hmm. And especially, that's part of why I don't have a lot of like identity-based violence in my shows. Like, there's going to be sword fights because they're fun.
Yes.
Because they do not negotiate for getting people to talk down. Didn't learn that from me.
But, you know, I don't stage a lot of identity-based violence, you know, because I also don't write a lot of my shows where like the trans person's whole journey is about their transition or about their trauma or stuff. The reason I don't do that is because I find showing the queer joy to be much more powerful, partly because, especially in like broader online discourse and broader online news, it's not as easy to pay attention to. As far as social media algorithms and news outlets are concerned, it's not as easy to pay attention to. These are the things that are going well. But continuing to repeat those queer joy moments, those humanizing moments, the silly, goofy, like tongue twister, awkward, things that happen just day to day, I find to be a much stronger impact. And it's encouraging for everybody because, like, especially since our news and our culture has so much of like, this is blowing up and that's blowing up and this is terrible and that's terrible, having stories that are so celebratory, even if we're fighting the bad guy and, things are tense for a minute, having that flow between helping use the stories to train that celebration, even in the midst of I'm staring down a dragon, whether it's real or whether it's, an emotional thing. I find farm very, very helpful and part of that activism.
And by sharing the story in the theater, we're reaching a whole different audience than you would have at a march. And the audience has a completely different mindset going on than you get at a politically charged march.
Yeah.
So your message has almost a better chance of sinking in because everybody's guard isn't up.
And that's part of why I pull on Shakespeare so much, because Shakespeare is so baked into our culture as like, yes, one of the great things. And it's, there's some resistance around the language because schools are not often equipped to teach Shakespeare very well. You're supposed to hear it, not read it. That's a whole soapbox.
That's a whole other podcast.
Whole thing. But, so there is some resistance around like, well, it's so old, it's outdated. Why are we still listening to this dead white guy? And it's like, yeah, but there is so much about the human condition. And because it's so established in our culture as a cornerstone, it's a great way to jujitsu. That's why I'm so excited to be playing an openly like trans aro-ace Romeo, because it is already, I haven't even gotten to rehearsals yet. I'm not even there. And already I'm starting to see some of their retired age audience going, I never thought of that. I'm so excited to learn about this. I'm so excited where can I hear more? And it's cracking open using the classics that people are more comfortable with to crack that open in a way that, it doesn't happen. And again, that theater is a little bit longer term thing rather than, a 1 hour march or a demonstration. So it's a different tool in the toolbox rather than one being better than the other, I think.
Yeah. So both and.
Yeah. Yeah, you need both. Yeah, we talk a lot about celebration in this house and like, celebrating in the midst of
celebrate. There is something you can celebrate every single day.
Yeah.
There might be a day that's so bad that all you can say is, I didn't burn the toast this morning because I didn't make any. That might be all you got that day, but it's something.
Yeah. And that also helps it helps me keep an even keel a lot, because that's part of my daily, I journal every night, and like I have 2 separate journals. I have one that's just like reflecting on what happened the day, and then I have another one that's specifically for what are things that I celebrate from the day, and I am physically writing them down, which is encoding the data into my brain differently. And it is backing up that, okay, there are things that I can still celebrate from today, even if the day did not go how I planned.
And there's some places where that works better than others. Art and theater, what I do with preaching, I can do that a little bit differently. But in your day-to-day conversations, as an engineer or a lawyer or whatever, when you're having those conversations, and somebody comes out with something that's homophobic or transphobic, the conversation, never in the history of you were wrong, did you were wrong change anybody's mind.
I really like when because I get especially invasive like comments and questions around my like asexuality and aromanticism more than my gender. And my favorite thing, like, is to just look at them and just be like, that's an odd thing to say. I'm just like, that's an interesting question. You know, just it flags it in a way that's still like respectful, but it still flags it, even if they don't clock it, to everybody else in the room of just like, oh, okay. Right. Like, you know,
that's an odd thing.
That's creative.
I've never heard anybody ask that question that way. Right? Or,
that's creative.
You know, that's creative. That's one of my favorites. Because creative can mean a whole range of things. Mm-hmm. It's a gentler way of saying, wow, that was stupid.
Because that one doesn't even.
Because wow, that was stupid doesn't help anything. No. It may make you feel better, but it's emotional vomit, right? And emotional vomit all that emotional vomit does is you feel better once it's out, but then somebody's got to clean it up. Mm-hmm. So let's use these amazing brains we have. Amazing brains. For something worthwhile and beautiful. Let's get more creative. Let's come up with some more creative ways to navigate this than the same old, tired, worn paths.
And it allows you to have more fun with your just like I mean, whimsy is a fantastic, well, and this is like something that we learned in like martial arts is like different emotions will serve different purposes in a fight. If you meet anger with anger, you can literally stalemate some joint locks and moves. But if the person you're fighting is angry and you switch to laughing, I've literally seen it happen mid stalemate. One person switched to laughing and they got the upper hand without adding any more force. So fascinating. I'm like, how does
it's emotional energy,
but right? It flips that and it gets you out of the stalemate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's really fun to watch the other person go, I was expecting a fight and I didn't get it. Right, now what do I do? I'm not prepared for this. Right? Because then they have to start thinking. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when they're in crisis, thought doesn't come easily.
Right.
Lizard brain takes over. Lizard brain doesn't words well.
Yeah, one of the ways I've actually used that in context, walking around downtown, got catcalled one time, and I just said, thanks for the compliment, and kept on going. And they were just like, by the time they figured out they didn't get the response they wanted, I was gone.
Big words help too. I mean, when somebody gives me something, I disagree with you, and I said, well, theological aptitude is not uncommon. Okay, next.
And they're like, what?
And by the time they figured out I just said that their understanding of God was wrong, they so theological aptitude is not uncommon. Right. So but getting creative, having and if you're having fun with, not having fun putting somebody else in pain, but having fun with navigating the conversation. You know, the phrase I've shared with Beks with several people is, once you can dance in hell, hell doesn't have power over you. Once you dance in hell, hell doesn't have power. Right. So when somebody else wants to put you through hell, if you're dancing and laughing, wow, they don't know what to do with that. All of a sudden, their bigotry, their hatred, well, that didn't work, so now I'm going to have to come up with something else. Well, yeah, you will, because I'm not going to get in that boat with you.
Right. Yeah, and that's been the fun of using like theater, especially because like, I also write and I do music and stuff, but that theater has, because it is such a collective effort, you are celebrating together, and that just amplifies and just exponentially grows how much joy and celebration and whimsy is in the room, and it makes it that much harder to come at and attack, because when you're pointing at, I love like the Portland frog situation. That's a good example of like, you know, people being, people being like, oh my gosh, they're a threat to democracy, and it's literally just a guy running around in an inflatable frog costume. It makes the bigotry look so silly. And it takes all the air out of it.
It's hard.
And you're having fun the whole time. You didn't get yourself bent into a spiral.
Yep. It's better for you. It's better for everybody. So, yeah.
Except the blood pressure company.
Oh, poor them. They're making enough. Everybody has blood pressure issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And like even stage combat, like, yes, to the audience, it looks like a fight where, you know, like Mercutio or, you know, Romeo is actually trying to kill Tybalt. But like what the two actors are doing is in a stage combat situation, you're not focused on yourself. My job is to take care of my scene partner. My scene partner's job is to take care of me. And so like automatically there's that built in, that teamwork, that we're working together, we're taking care of each other. And it can flow much more like a dance with swords than, you know.
Yeah. So what if we approached every conflict as it's part of my responsibility to care for you? How would that change all of our societal arguments? You have just trusted me. I hadn't thought about this. You've just trusted me with your anger and your hatred. You have trusted me with your. Have we ever thought of it that way? I see you thinking. I see it. I see thinking happening. What if
you're trusting with that fear underneath.
I'm trusting you with my hatred and my anger, hoping you see whatever is driving them, and that maybe you will care enough to get past the presentation.
Ooh.
What if we approached it always like that?
I know what we're discussing in the car today.
We're driving you work. I know what we're talking about.
We just had a new idea.
And so I'm trusting you with this pain, with this sorrow, with this loss, with this fear.
Right.
That I may not even be able to verbalize, so it's coming out as an attack.
Yeah. So, and I share with people, approach those moments with curiosity instead of defensiveness. And if we approach it with curiosity, so tell me why you feel that way. What experience? I mean, one question I ask people when they're like, "Oh, the trans people are trying to take away our guns in our bathrooms." I don't know why they're coming after our guns, but they are, evidently. And my conversation is, how many trans people have you encountered? Curiosity. Right. Oh, what trans person tried to? When did the drag queens come for your guns? I've never seen drag queens coming for guns before. And if we could get more curious, what if we approach these conflicts as somebody trusting us with their pain and fear?
Because usually the issue that presents is not the issue at hand.
It's the secondary emotion, not the root cause.
But because random stranger isn't going to come to you, I mean, online they will because emotional vomit, but personally, in your comments, right? The people who comment or say something directly to you, knowing your child, these are people you know. So they're now trusting you with fear, pain, anger, hurt.
Oh.
That's another podcast.
We're
about out of time. Didn't mean to bring up a good idea at the end, but this is why conversation's important, because it helps us to see things from different perspectives.
All because swords are fun.
Back to fighting again.
As long as I have a sword in my hand, nobody gets hurt, including myself. So when I put the sword down, I can't make any guarantees.
Right.
That's a very odd reality we live in. But yeah, our life isn't that interesting, so
clearly
we just sort of go through things.
Well, on behalf of y'all, I want to thank Beks for everything that they've provided for us over these last 3 sessions that we've done in the last several months, and to their parents for joining us today. And I'm so glad that we were able to be a part of your journey as an artist and as a family, and for our org. If anyone who is watching or anyone who is watching the recording has any suggestions for other topics for more of our Trans the Art series, please email us at info@evolveforall.org. We would love to continue this with other folks, anyone else that you have interest in hearing from, and perhaps we'll hear from Beks again in the future with more updates on what they're working on. So you can be sure to check them out. Beks, where are places that people can find more information about you and your work?
Yeah, my website is where everything is. So it's beksrowan.org. So BEKSROEN, because the automatic transcriptions always are confused. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you so
And,
much.
Yeah, and how about on social media? What's the best way for folks to find you?
Yes, I am Roguish Goblin Stories on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest. Blue Sky had a character limit, so it's Roguish Goblin Story, singular.
2 letters too short.
2 letters too short. Whoops.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Again, appreciate you joining us. Thanks everyone for joining today for our 3rd Trans in the Art series for y'all. You can find more information about our organization at y'allforall.org or at y'allforall on all social media. We provide funding for trans and gender diverse individuals, all ages throughout Indiana, for any gender affirming need that they have, as well as many community programming events such as this. So thank you everyone for joining, and we will see you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
The dog.
That was great.
Right there.
All right.